Prue, who might have just left the room. Welcome everyone to this evening's forum. Our chairman is hopefully a late starter, possibly an apology. I've just spoken to him with a lot of machinery in the background, so he's hoping to join us a little bit later. But thank you all for being here this evening. This evening's theme is around what we're good in agriculture at doing, acronyms, R&D, but better known as research and development, and also hopefully a bit of extension in there as well. So we're very keen to hear from Intergrain, who've taken over the oat breeding program, and also about the National Hay Agronomy program. We're then going to hear from one of AFIA's long-term sponsors, Kuhn, and we'll wrap up with two Our Place presentations from two of our members, geographically dispersed, one from Western Australia and the other one from Berrigan in southern New South Wales. So we've got a fairly tight agenda, but I was absent last week. I was an apology, and I believe we probably made up a couple of minutes at the end. So well done. Thanks, Prue. We'll have the next slide. So we're here for 100 minutes. Just to all let you know, the meeting is already being recorded and will be placed on our website after the event. For those, if you have colleagues that miss it or want to have another look, you're welcome to hop online. Everyone should be on mute when they join us. So when you have a question, just remember to unmute yourself before asking that. Thanks, Prue. You should see a little control bar on your screen that tells you how to turn your camera on and off. And if you do have a question, it would be great if you could turn your camera on so that we can see you. You'll need to unmute yourself, and then you can either use the digital raise your hand on your keyboard, or if you're not sure how to do that, wave at us, and hopefully we'll find you and direct the question to you. Thanks, Prue. We just ask everyone, when you go to ask a question tonight, remember to take yourself off mute. You might just introduce yourself, tell us who you are and where you're from, and just due to our time frame, we're asking you to be as tight with your question as you can. If we have any questions that we don't have time for, we'll try and deal with those offline and share the answers with everyone. Thanks, Prue. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Allan, who's joining us tonight from Intergrain to talk to us about the new oat breeding program. And I'm sure many people on the call are aware that this was managed through SARDI, the South Australian government department, up until recently, and Intergrain have taken it over. So Allan, we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Can you see my screen okay now?
Not quite.
Hasn't come up yet?
Might just take a couple of seconds, but I've stopped presenting, so you should have the floor.
I'm not quite sure, but I haven't got video working my camera doesn't come up. So when I go to click it, did that work?
There we go.
Yep. Okay, so can you see my presentation now?
I can just see you at the moment.
Oh, right, okay. I do not know what the problem is. Sorry, technology is great when it works. Is it working now?
No, we're still just seeing you, Allan.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Pro, were you able to just bring up the presentation I sent through before? For some reason, it is not loading at my end.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Frustrating. Sorry. Could just be internet reception, but. So whilst that's loading, the first few slides are pretty routine. The major thing is Intergrain are very, very excited about working with the oat program in both grain and hay. And our motto is always delivering value through market-leading varieties. And at Intergrain today, one thing that breeding is a team effort, and Intergrain have a team of scientists and technicians who are dedicated to the cause. We live, breathe, and love plant breeding, so it's we're always keen to go very hard at it. We're Australia's leading barley company, top 2 in wheat. We're now the only oat breeding program. We have 55 staff across the nation. We have staff in every mainland state of Australia. We also have the machinery of plant breeding, and what I mean by that is, for example, we got the seed quite late from Rattey this year, and that was just a contractual thing, no dramas. It was a great transition, but we were able to turn getting seed around and seed in the ground in about 5 weeks because we have the machinery of plant breeding at hand. We have a seed packing robot that allows us to plant pack about 5,000 plots a day. A normal person would pack about 300 to 400. So you can see the manpower difference we have. As a company, we run about 300,000 yield plots across the country. And we're obviously, at this point, the oat and hay and grain program will be resourced equally, and they both have a national program. Next slide, please. Sorry, I can't quite actually see where we're up to. So in 2021, we planted about 27,000 yield plots, and that's double the numbers that Rattey were running for 2017 to 2019. So you can see that one of what we were trying to do straight up with the breeding program was actually increase the scale of the program. Can anyone see my presentation yet?
No.
No.
Okay.
Can you hear me there?
Yeah, I said can, Lewis.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to be on.
Have you got the presentation, Prue?
I don't have the PDF.
Is that working now?
Ah, there we go.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know why it wouldn't come up before. So, so as I said, this year we've got about 27,000 plots in the grain and hay breeding program, which is about double what Rattey were able to run from 2017 to 2019, not including last year where there was obviously some reductions. So the short term, our strategic priorities are, as I said, around increasing population size and intensity, aligning better with agronomy, and making sure that we're linking both locally and globally with pre-breeding. And in the hay space, we're really keen to push very hard at high throughput phenotyping, and that's where most of our talk will be. Medium term, we will be developing and applying genomic selection, which is a fantastic tool, and we'll be working on that both again locally and globally. And then we're also working on high throughput phenotyping for hay quality, which is obviously going to be quite difficult. So when I say reducing the selection timeline, but with a bigger bucket or bigger pipeline, one of the first things we did was we actually got segregating populations from Rattey. We've put them in a glass house so that we can hurry them through, which will mean that we can get them through another generation of selfing via a summer nursery that we run every year at our Horsham site. And then when we get into the new technology, the new toys, the new tools, this is where it gets a bit exciting. Genomics really is the ability to predict genetic performance based just off the seed, just off the grain. So what we do in wheat and barley now is we actually use this technology that we've been working on for a few years. The publication's down there in the bottom right-hand corner, and basically we just extract DNA from the seed. We make a decision whether, before it goes to stage naught, we make a decision whether we want to advance that variety or discard that variety. And then in time, we will also be using haplotype breeding, and that's where the rubber will really hit the road. Where I want to talk mostly today is about high throughput phenomics, because that's got direct and current relevance to hay breeding. So up in the top left-hand corner there, you can see 3 cameras, RGBs, basically just a photograph, and it's nice, been around for a while. 2 on the left are multispectral ones. The one in the middle there is actually a hexacopter, so it's actually got 6 blades. It can carry about 10 kilos of payload, which is quite big. The camera that's attached to that actually is probably the highest end thermal camera you can get that you can attach to a drone. We actually needed US government US Army approval to get it sent out because they were wondering why a company like us wanted such a high-tech piece of equipment. Basically, what this lets us do is predict biomass and canopy temperature of the crop. So as you can see in the next slide I've got here, with high throughput phenomics or HTP, biomass prediction will be possible soon. We're actually getting pretty good at it now. With a bit more time and a bit more technology, we'll improve to a point where we will still do biomass cuts in stage 4 trials, but in stages 1, 2, and 3, we'll just predict it all the way. The major things to look at on these pictures here, the one on the left, you can see there that's one of the trial sites this year. Now, normally in the previous study program, even when it was running full bottle, they would have one S2 site where they would estimate biomass. We've got 8 sites this year where we've already got at least 2 or 3 predictions of biomass, simply because we fly them at the same time as the stage 4 trial because they're co-located. And so what that means is as we go forward, we'll have a much better understanding of biomass much earlier in the breeding program. And we other things like canopy temperature, for example, will help drive what we're trying to do. When we get into quality, it's obviously more difficult, but what I'm assuming at the moment is that the phenomics that we have is all based off reflectance data, and that requires a green biomass for signal. So when we're deploying these technologies in early gen selection trials, if something's actually got poor leaf health, as in it's brown, it won't have as good a reflectance, and therefore will underestimate its crop biomass, and therefore it will have a lower chance of progressing in the breeding program. So effectively indirect selection for colour by prediction of biomass by a drone, which obviously means it's a win-win as we go forward. The last real slide I have is intrinsic grain quality, hay quality will be a big issue. Now, we have there was an AgriFutures project last year started by Tim Sutton and Darren Platt starting APPF. So we've worked with that team, and we've now expanded the project. So Intergrain have invested dollars as well to make sure that we can extract as much value as possible from this exciting project. So the intrinsic grain hay quality parameters that have been measured, WSC, ADF, NDF, and then a couple of other NDF types there you can see across time. That's been done at ZOX 59 in this project. Intergrain have actually invested so that we can actually do those biomass cuts twice and the hay quality wet chemistry twice at Z71 as well, so that we can understand the change of key quality parameters across time, which I keep hearing is probably the biggest issue in the industry at the moment. We will also fund research looking at those same traits in our breeding trials, which are co-located. So I think this is quite interesting. I've made the comment there that previous research that in other crops indicates that WSC will be resolvable with hyperspectral reflectance. When I was in wheat, I actually had a project 10 years ago where we were looking at that, and we were getting close 10 years ago, and my PhD actually is in sugarcane, so I do know a little bit about sugar. Writing marketing, and this is one of the key reasons why Intergrain were chosen to commercialise the Sardi breeding program. We have a lot of experience and proven track record in variety marketing and generating market demand for our products, and also we have a very strong and long ties with national distribution networks, and so that means that the path to market will be clear. It'll be quick. It'll be more rapid than what currently has happened. And with that, I'd just like to thank everyone for your time this afternoon. As I said, breeding's a big team. I haven't listed everyone here because it is a big team, but at the moment we've engaged with as many people as we can. And as far as breeding goes, I've been doing this job for literally 5 months, but in real terms in breeding, that's 5 minutes. So I really openly welcome any questions because the more we learn, the faster we'll go forward more efficiently. And breeding is all about knowing the target. So anyone's got more questions, please send them through to me, Pip, and someone will have my contact details. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. I'm just going to ask anyone who's got questions to hang on to those for a minute, and we're going to go to our next presenter, if we may, just while we're on our R&D roll. And I should also acknowledge, Alan, that just when we come to questions, I believe the good news is you won't be the only person in the hot spot, because I think we have on the line also Tress Walmsley, the CEO of Intergrain. So you'll have a friend if you need to phone a friend for any curly questions. It's now a great pleasure to welcome Hari. Good evening and welcome. Hari is here tonight standing in for several other people to talk to us a bit about the National Hay Agronomy program and talk us through where it's at. And Hari works for Agriculture Victoria. So welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Paula. Can everyone see my presentation? Yep, thank you. Hi, welcome everyone for the National Hay Agronomy Research Project. I am Hari Dadu, as Paula said, working as a research scientist at Agriculture Victoria. As many of you are aware, National Hay Agronomy Project is a 4-year project funded by AgriFutures as part of the Export Fodder program. And this project is a collaborative project across Southern Australia, where oat growing regions are in Western Australia, Victoria, South Australia, and New South Wales, and is working across different organizations as well. The project aims at the end of next year to provide information about variety selection, nutrition advice, updated disease management options, and also access to PGR as a tool to manage lodging in high yielding environments. Let me introduce the team before I move forward. From Western Australia, we have the passionate Georgie Troop as a project manager, who is currently on leave, and in her absence, Blakely, an expert agronomist, is acting as a project manager, while we have Kylie and Jeff Thomas as a plant pathologist for this project in Western Australia. Sarah Jackson and Kim Arnold are agronomists. From Victoria, Mark, senior research scientist, and I work on the plant pathology component. And we have Alison and Jen from BCG Group working on agronomy side of the component for Victoria. And for South Australia, we have Courtney and Rhiannon looking on agronomy aspects, and Courtney is on leave currently. We have another expert, Peter Matthews from New South Wales, looking on agronomical aspects in New South Wales. Coming to the 2020 summary, we have conducted 29 trials across different regions, and along with the field surveillance programs to identify diseases in different parts of Southern Australia and Western Australia. Agronomy trials included time of sowing, nitrogen application, growth stage and hay quality, king bale comparison to winteroo, effect of gibberellic acid on panicle emergence, effect of PGR on reducing lodging. Since I'm a pathologist, I'm not going to explain more about these agronomical trials, as I'm also not aware of. And but unfortunately, all our agronomy colleagues are unavailable today, but many of you can get in touch with them anytime. As I said, about pathology perspective, before this project, there was little knowledge on pathology or diseases that actually cause impact on fodder yield and quality. But for the last 3 years, what we found is disease definitely has an impact on fodder yield and quality by reducing the green leaf portion of the oat leaves. And our ad hoc crop surveillance programs of the last 3 years have revealed 2 important diseases for 2 different regions. One is Septoria blotch in oats in Western Australia, is confirmed as a damaging, most prominent and damaging disease, whereas we found red leather leaf in Victorian part as a most damaging disease in medium and high rainfall zones of Victoria and South Australia. And there are a few more diseases which actually has an impact on on oat quality and yield. For now, I will refer to read the review that has been published by Kylie Chambers and is available in DPED website. And also, based on this, we conducted trials on Septoria in Western Australia and red leather leaf in Victoria, and we have conducted nearly 10 trials in the last 2 years. And also, we looked at late fungicide applications impact on post-cutting hay staining, which I'll be talking more about on it today. And first up is Septoria impact on hay yield and quality in Western Australia. what our team was found is disease severity varied with the varietal resistance, but they haven't found any effect on hay yield and quality. But this could be just because of the low disease severity levels within the trials and also not favorable environment available at those seasons. But nevertheless, with a caution, this disease is found to be a damaging disease across Western Australia. And if proper conditions are available, then there would be a yield loss and also losses to the quality. So we recommend to follow the necessary management options in order to get the control of this disease in most favorable conditions. Western Australia also has conducted some experiments on crown rust last year, where they found significant impact on hay yield and quality in most susceptible varieties, such as Carolop. And what they also found is the hay quality will be dropped to below grade 4 if there is no disease control applied. And the picture on the right shows that the difference between the resistant variety and the susceptible variety. And you can imagine what could be the yield losses if that happens, if you're having a susceptible variety in your farm. And the management strategies could be just so the resistant varieties that are available from the cereal disease guides. And if you still have a susceptible variety, we would suggest to look for the fungicide options. And depending on the conditions, you may have to apply twice in most susceptible varieties. And in Victoria, as I said, red leaf was found to be most prominent disease. And we have done some research for the last 2 seasons on how it impacts on the hay yield and quality. And before this research, there was no literature available across the world for this disease. And we are proud to say that we have found new knowledge on this disease. And what is that this disease is capable of causing losses of up to 1 ton on average in susceptible varieties. And also a reduced stem thickness and plant height is also associated with this disease. We didn't find any hay quality issues, but what we found is the reddish color that is developed because of the disease may be a potential concern for the export hay quality. Last year, when I was speaking to a few export companies, they did say that this disease is having an impact in the export hay just because of the color. And the management strategy for now is use resistant varieties, which are available currently. And since there is no fungicide options available or registered for this disease at the moment, we say that use fungicides which are registered for other diseases in oats. And we also tested those few fungicide options, but what we found is the fungicides couldn't provide complete suppression of the disease, but there may be some sort of suppression and some sort of savings, definitely. And when you apply or when you decide to go on for the fungicides, we suggest to apply at mid-tillering stage so that it coincides with the disease development and proper control is achieved. And as I said, there are a few other diseases which actually we haven't concentrated in this project, but the future shows that bacterial blight, stem rust in Victoria, rhizoctonia in Western Australia, and few other soil-borne diseases could be a problem in coming days unless we have some sort of control. And as I said, the other topic that we conducted trials on was post-cutting discoloration. What is actually post-cutting discoloration or hay discoloration? So this is nothing but the blackening that is developed after cutting in windrows, which is normally caused by common fungi and that feed on dead plants, or otherwise called as saprophytes. The saprophytes generally grow on dead plants, and if there's moisture around during the windrow or curing process, then they tend to become more problematic and cause quality losses or increase mycotoxin levels as well in the hay, and your hay may not be able to sell in the market. So what we have found at the start of the project is there were many growers who have been following applying of late fungicide applications where using strobilurins or triazole chemistries, and they found that there was some sort of effect on this blackening thing, and they were able to better sale. They were able to find better markets for that. So what we tested is we just confirmed these evidences using our trials, where we found the saprophytic effect of the fungi was indeed reduced by applying strobilurins or triazole chemistries, and also these fungicide applications reduced the mold growth. Again, we found the greatest effect was found on the top windrow surface, and underneath, since there was more green leaf available, there was less amount of saprophytic colonies, and the impact was much lesser compared to the top windrow surface. Consider if you have a situation where you have wider windrows, then the fungicide effects will be really great on overall hay quality. We didn't find any color or green visual parameters affected by fungicide applications, nor nutrition quality was disturbed. But what we did found was they were, at the end of the windrow season, we found fungicide residues in the hay, which are slightly above the limits of mostly export destinations such as Japan or Korea, which is just around 0.01 milligrams per kg. But what we found is 0.08 or 0.11 in strawberry or triazole chemistry. So which is still okay for the Australian domestic market, but it is not okay for the few export countries. And we also had some news recently that a few of those samples which had higher levels of fungicides have been rejected. So our advice would be follow label recommendations for rates and withholding periods. And we are also in plans to do some research around when to apply the fungicides and when the timing of the fungicides, and also so that we will be able to mitigate the MRL issues later in the season. So that research is yet to happen, and we'll be able to provide that information very soon. So on that note, I conclude my presentation. And for any other updates, please follow us on Twitter with the hashtag National Hay Agronomy, and you'll be able to find all the updates over there. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Hari. That was great. Do we have any questions? And while people are working out whether they're going to use their real hand or their digital hand, I've got one for you, Hari, just to ask the question that probably some months ago now, you had a media release regarding the red leather leaf and just creating farmer awareness. I'm just curious to know how you get with that, and particularly as a general rule, do you think there is good awareness amongst the farming community, or do we have a bit of an education program to go in that space?
Yeah, we at the start, even researchers were not really aware of this disease when we started with the project. And this was not a new disease for Victoria, but it was a new disease for everyone who are actually working on oat hay. And when we went about surveillance, or when we met farmers in pre-COVID era, there was completely no information whatsoever, and farmers were also not aware of the symptoms even. And most importantly, these symptoms are very relative to the bacterial blight, such as halo blight as well, so which causes more confusion. And farmers were completely not aware of that, and mostly they were ignorant just because there was no disease as such. That's the opinion they had. And what we found is, like with beautiful extension programs that we had in the last 2 years, we were able to educate the advisors, and they are in turn able to educate the growers as well. And to this day, I can still say that there is still some amount of information definitely needed by growers, and they actually have come up with, at this stage, they have identified this as a disease, and they have started to look for answers such as what is the fungicide application that I can go on, and what sort of cultural practices that I can do. So those sort of things have been ringing in the farmers' minds, which means that our research has gone through to the level of growers right now. So, but few more research has to be done where we can still give complete control of the disease. For that, we still need some more time, and by that time, I think the farmers will be able to get the control of the disease.
Thanks, Hari. Does anyone else have a question for our guest presenters? Yes, Andrew Walter.
Hello, Andrew Walter from Violet Town in Victoria. Harry, a question for you. How long is it going to be before you're able to give us some more information on what we can use for our late season fungicide applications on oat and hay crops?
Hello, Andrew. You're from Violeton. I did my study at Dookie, so more familiar with the place. Thanks for the question. Currently, this year, we are not doing any research on that aspect. We expect that future investment will be there in coming season, and we'll be doing more research on that. But as I said, the late applications, we are still finding some residues, even if we apply at growth stage 31 and 39 or so. So that is a cause of concern for now. Yeah, we'll have to wait for some more time and some more research to give credible answers for you to get that.
So, Harry, what's the state of play for this season then? Should we be putting fungicides on this year's oat and hay crop for both the domestic and export markets, or leaving it aside?
For domestic market, definitely you can go, because we didn't find any limits that are above the Australian set standards. For the export market, I would say going with earlier than what you are practicing. For suppose late season means if you're going completely at 55, then I would say there would be a problem with the residues. But if you're choosing much earlier growth stage, then you might be missing those problems, definitely. But again, the impact would be dependent on how the rains and the climate actually plays during the windrow process and curing process. If there are more rains, then definitely your early fungicide applications will not come into play. And that's again a big minus for that.
When you say the early applications don't come into play, that is that they don't have any impact on protecting your hay quality in the windrow with rain coming on it. Yes,
definitely. Definitely. We have seen that in those windrow process, we have seen when there is in Western Australia, those people had artificial infrastructure, irrigation structures where they have tested different time points during the windrow 10-day process at 5 days, 10 days, and 20 days as well. And they have consistently found that increasing saprophytic levels if there's moisture around, and the fungicides will not definitely come into play. But if there's no rain at all, then definitely those fungicides will help you and will get you out of the problem.
Okay, no, thank you for that, Harry. I think it's important that we know about the what the impact of the fungicides can be on the overseas markets, and yeah, it's a concern.
Yeah, definitely, it is a concern. Last year, I was told by Georgie that there were 3 or 4 samples which got rejected from Korea because of higher residues. So that is definitely a concern, and we have more questions on that. So we are looking for addressing those issues in coming research.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Harry. If I might, Paul, I have another question for Harry.
Yeah. You can, as long as you're short and sweet, Andrew, because we've got someone else with a question, and then we're moving on. But
well, I'm always short and sweet, Paula.
Excellent.
What varieties were the best at showing resistance to red leatherleaf in Victoria?
Yeah, good question. If you are using Williams, that should be good. And Tungu, I'm not sure how many people are growing, but Tungu is a very good resistant variety. And another one is a slow resistant variety, which is Forester. So, sorry, slow maturing variety, I would say, is also having very good resistance. Again, if you're growing Winteroo, Elara, Mulgara, or Kingbell, I'm not sure if it is yet on the ground. So those are all very susceptible varieties.
So just to recap, for the long season, you were saying Forester was pretty good, were you?
Yes, long season Forester is really good, and for short season and medium seasons, you can go with Williams or Tungu.
Yes, no, that's what our experience here at Violet Town has been. We very much like Forester, to be honest. Harry?
Yeah, for us, it is not a good thing for research just because it doesn't flower at all in Horsham on most seasons. So we were never able to get the hay cuttings go on time with that.
Wow. Harry, be careful what you wish for, because you might find yourself on a Violet Town farm and you'll be right. But Andrew, thank you for your question. Thank you, Harry, for answering. And we've got a question from Kieran Maxwell. Good evening, Kieran. Welcome.
Good evening, Paula. Thank you, Harry. I won't turn my camera on. I've had a big day on the road and I don't have my work shirt on, so I'll just go incognito at this stage. One of the things that does need to be considered, we do have more information on booklets from ourselves and is export slaughter intervals. So when you talk about applying these chemicals, there is the consideration for export slaughter intervals as well. That has a major effect within the feedlot market. So if we talk about a domestic market, that is a major effect. And there are a number of additives in these that basically require clean feed to the animals before they go to slaughter. And that's virtually impossible within the feedlot sector. So it is important to take note that if you're moving products into the domestic market, that you must be aware of the export slaughter intervals being the ESIs. As far as via the APVMA, I've been going around in circles for a couple of years now with detailed information, and unfortunately, it doesn't come in any other residual information for the labelling of the products. Majority of the times, you need to go to the trade sector of the labelling of the product, and that will give you an indication of that use of that product going into export markets, because it does get a little bit confusing when you look at the detail of it. But I'm certainly happy to help anyone on that side.
Thanks, Kieran. Allan, I don't want you to go without a question, so I've got a bit of a hypothetical for you, but it's we've now quickly rolled on to 2026. Those US drone people turned up and they thought you were a pretty good bloke, so they've offered you a job and you're off. We're at your farewell function and there's a group of farmers who've come along to thank you for all that you've done for Intergrain over the years. And my question is, what is your sort of oat breeding legacy going to be when you stand up and give your farewell speech?
That's a very interesting question. Thanks, Paula. I hope that the legacy that Intergrain, and it is a team effort, of course, have in 4 or 5 years' time, is that we've actually changed the way oat and hay breeding is done. You know, the tools or the toys that we're deploying now have come about from years and years of research. The Field Explorer with the APPF project there that AgriFutures are funding, for example, out of South Australia. I mean, that piece of equipment's a $1 million piece of equipment, but countless hundreds of millions of dollars worth of research globally that have gone into it. So for me, I think the thing and genomics is another kettle of fish altogether. It's been happening since the 80s in cattle, and the 90s and the 2000s in the big multinats in corn in particular. So I mean, I used to work for Dow. We used to use genomic selection there in corn space, and it's really around making sure that those technologies are hitting the ground running in oat and hay as quick as they can, and they come with big bank balances to require that you have them. So they only come from multi-crops businesses like ours, and that's what I said in the machinery of plant breeding. That's what I was getting to. So the millions of dollars we've spent in the wheat barley space, for example, that investment wouldn't be possible in an oat breeding program without we wouldn't be able to make that investment in the oat breeding program, without being able to leverage off what we've done in wheat and barley in genomics, and it's the same in phenomics. So those tools will really increase the rate of genetic gain that we see in farmers' field, and that's what we're all about, making sure that the growers and the industry are getting value from our research.
Thanks, Allan. Anyone else with a question for Allan before we let him go? No? Okay, Hari and Allan, thank you very much for your time tonight. We appreciate it. If we get any other questions, we'll pass them on, but we'll be in touch, and we look forward to seeing you for an update in the not too distant future. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Paula.
Thanks very much. And as I said, breeding is all about knowing the target. So any more questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Allan. Hi, Tress, you've just appeared. Thank you for joining us.
I have been listening in the background, definitely.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
It's actually the first time I've seen Trez in weeks myself, so it's good.
I'm glad we could facilitate that. Now, it's my great pleasure to hand over to one of AFIA's long-term sponsors, and that is Bruno from Kuhn, who's going to talk to us about evolution of implement manufacturing and a not so long-term vision. So, oh, we've got some little people in a background somewhere, but welcome, Bruno, and it's all over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening. First, do you hear me well? I guess so. I'm going to share my screen now, if that's working. Let's see, then. Okay. Do you see a black screen?
Yes, that's it, Bruno. All good.
That should be right. Okay, so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present this section. And I do know that there is a presentation done on automation next week and next Thursday, but I could not get onto this evolution of implement manufacturing subject without touching this as well. And I really wondered how to start this presentation and how I would drag in your attention to Kuhn a bit more. And I thought that actually letting a grade 5 drawing a robot for you tonight would make you feel with a bit more empathy with what I'm going to say and how I'm going to approach the subject with a bit more, ease and getting you into my world of possible. So looking closely at any robot drawings that you would ask a kid to do, the first intention, I'd say, is to create something that would replace human being in a sense that it would look like a human being, with hands and legs, and that would do the task that we are doing on a daily basis and that are superseded by someone or something that is made of metal and electronic chips, even though electronic chips is becoming very rare nowadays. Well, if there's one thing that we've learned about robotics is that instead of creating robots that replaces us, it tends to displace jobs first. There aren't less jobs because of robotics, we know that, and there's a good report done by the University of Oxford in 2020 that says that there will be about 30 million jobs, primary jobs, that will be lost by 2030, but also on the other hand, another 97 million jobs will be created, which is a 3-to-1 ratio. That's pretty good. So there are different jobs, but back to the idea of the robot. The robot is not something that you will send to do your grocery shopping. No, instead you will order online and you will probably get a drone to deliver your goods. Or you will not ask your robot to drive your tractor because the tractor itself is the robot and the automation will take over. So as the technology gets into our lives and daily lives, the more robotization and automation comes into our lives, and you've got to be prepared for that. And market research says that yes, the growth rate in the next years are going to be about 30% year on year. So sure, you've got to welcome automation, and your environment always win over your intention. That's a universal law. But back 20 years ago, and I think this is where all begins, and Kuhn manufactured machinery for about 200 years now. And 200 years is a sum of experience, of manufacturing experience we've got. Kuhn has very quickly dedicated most of its research on investment on hay and forage equipment. We call that equipment, but we also call that attachment or implement. At the time, only the horse was the horsepower to tow those machines. Then, very quickly, And I know that here, probably your attention is probably focused on the tractor itself, but here this is a mid-mount sickle bar mower on a Renault V73 tractor. That is in 1945, 1946, just after the Second World War. And if you remember your history books with the Marshall Plan was the big plan put in place to drag this huge mechanization adoption at the time. But from that point until now, the tractor and the attachment or implement have always paired to become one single and unique tool for a specific task. So designers since have patented thousands of mechanical improvements that we know today, and we can see them as probably the state of the art of the hay tool equipment. So here you see an FC 10030 mower conditioner with a front FC 3525 with steel rollers, rubber rollers, or flail, depending on the application that you need. It's a 10-meter cutting working width. And we've launched that machine about a couple of years ago. But from 1945, fast forward to 2019, just before COVID hit, it's about 70 years of improvement and mechanical incredible changes that we've been experiencing and having the benefit of. So either it's the tractor or the equipment, but the hay tool machinery has become more reliable, larger, more cost-effective, with the ability to be on the task for 8, 10, 12 hours a day before you refuel the tractor, or before the human being driving the tractor needs to have a rest, or probably have a beer. So that is where we are today. And since 1828, Kuhn has been capable of extraordinary adaptability with his machinery to adapt to all the new challenges that we went through during those years. And today, I think that the world is also going through very uncertain times. And there is one thing, though, that we can be very sure of is agriculture. Agriculture is, as we know, and we all know, is in its path to generate another fantastic transformation. We've read this week the $73 billion that farming revenue is going to make this year. And this is on the path to generate the $100 million that we've promised that agriculture will make by 2030. So what we know of all that is that each of these very challenging times have accelerated the transformation of our society and farming practices. So there's no doubt that this is happening now, and we are living that live everywhere around us. My grandkids, or maybe your grandkids, will probably tell the stories of this new industry development that will be probably called the post-COVID era one. So where do we all go from there? Automation, robotization, probably yes, because this is what we're all sure of. But how this will impact the farming machinery? So first, there's definitely words, new words that have entered every day, our discussions and debates. And connectivity is one, IoT for Internet of Things, data transfer, mapping, geolocation. There are words that we use every day. And there are many other ones that were not in our vocabulary 10 years ago. First, as you know, as you just saw, the attachment was the only thing, the only piece of equipment. And then the tractor came to complete the attachment. And then recently, the connected implement to the tractor, connected. Either the implement uses its own control display or to communicate with the user or the tractor, or we are using the isobus connectivity to marry the tractor and the implement. But it doesn't really matter there, because I think, and it's for sure, this is the start of the communication machine-to-machine era that we are living live. But where are we going? Well, I think that it's quite clear. We are going to a fully automated world or fully automated implement. So you see what I'm trying to get you little by little. The tractor and the machine blends into one and gives birth to a unique tool, and probably smaller in size that we know today. And that, okay, this is a futuristic, but not so much. Not so much because this is actually happening, and currently development that companies have all over the world that are testing the concept of. I think that's something to be aware of, is that having a tractor pulling a 33 feet or 12 or 10 meter working with mower conditioner full electric is definitely of the domain of the pure imagination at this point in time. And to be more specific on that, with maybe basic arithmetic, if you take a battery that would generate 300 kilowatts on the drawbar with the lithium battery technology we know today, we have access to, that battery would probably weigh around 18 to 20 tons. So that's just impossible. And the battery will probably add at least 500,000 to 7, 8, or probably $1 million on top of the equipment to run that with the full capacity and the full extent of 12 hours in the paddock. So full electric is definitely out of question for now. However, electric is going to run more and more functionalities. So the principal power to run the machine is probably going to come from another source to start with. Fuel, diesel for now, biofuel, hydrogen, and the likes. But most likely, we are going to definitely look at smaller units. Smaller units, fleet of smaller units, 100% interconnected to each other. So imagine 5 minutes that you've got your paddock, instead of having a 10 meter working with or 2 mowers cutting your hay, you've got a fleet of 10 little machines interconnected, mowing your hay, cutting your hay. That is probably where we are going. And this is also the dream of manufacturers, that instead of having hundreds of different models and different sizes, we'll probably just focus on much less, few couple of models that will be the base of the technology. So is Kuhn geared up for progress? Are we investing in this? Well, I think that the answer is that for quite some years now, we are investing about $45 million in research and development per year, which is 4.5% of our revenue, and 4.5%. And then we, as Kuhn, have invested in software development and high technology more in the last 2 years than in the past 15 combined. We have more than 60 software developers today, which would have been unthinkable 15 years ago. So things are changing, and changing rapidly. But when I'm talking about progress, what is actually the meaning of progress? Progress is, and the fundamentals are still there, making our lives less painful, increasing productivity, synonym of happiness and quality of life. But I also think that is very much changing, and there are new terminologies that are attached to the meaning of progress, like technology rate adoption, as we know, connectivity, as I said, and artificial intelligence. So I think that there are points that will add onto it, like looking for sustainable profitability, financial strength instead of productivity itself, adapting to change or shifting from globalization to regionalization. It's probably things that are the new narrative that would be part of the word progress. And that new narrative is taking place. And then you might have a slightly understood that something is going on, and there's and then Kuhn and others, we are not just focusing on new technology development to keep up with competition or for the sake of having gimmicks on our machines to look nice. The pressure comes from a new narrative that we hear every day about the impact of climate change. And I'm not talking about the change of climate at all here. I'm just raising that point because I'm talking about the forthcoming regulatory changes that will force the transformation, pushing manufacturers to think otherwise. And to me, or for you, the more important things, and more importantly, and more important than the debate on whether we have the hottest summer on record, or the coolest summer on record, or the rainier spring on record, is to get prepared for transformation. So irrespective of what happened, there are only one thing that matters, is how you are as a farmer, contractor, hay producer, dairy or cattle farmer, or even us manufacturers, going to embrace that transformation. Again, becoming sustainably profitable instead of profitable, gaining in financial strength instead of gaining productivity, or being able to adapt to change quickly with adoption of new technology, being aware that shifting from globalization to regionalization can also mean, in some cases, new opportunities. So it's a lot of things here that I try to bring on the table that will probably let you go away with thoughts, but we've heard a lot about to specialize into production to get better at it, to do more by doing less, or we also heard about diversity is the enemy of productivity. Well, I think that there are quotes now that might become obsolete with times, because technology will create diversity for sustainable farming and crisis management. How is the question? How this will all happen, and how are you going to play that role and make those changes? But purely, you need to control the outbound or inbound of your data. And we've heard about data, and data has been a swear word for some time, especially big data. To be honest with you, when I heard big data years ago for the first time, I just could not grasp what it was all about. But actually, it's very simple. It's all and every single action that you do on your farm. Action that are assisted by sensors recording what just happened. Some of millions of information that those information that must be in your possession, yeah, to give that feedback that will allow you to make those business decisions. So you could well feel that quite overwhelming, millions of data entry lines that you have to treat, but then you've got to relax as well, because artificial intelligence algorithms are coming to help you and to do that for you. Just have to set up the parameters, same as what you do today, actually, and with when you upload your field mapping, that tells you or tells your fertilizer spreader, for example, where or how much to spread. So I'm certain that you're all very much on top of your game, and when it comes to find the right information for your business, and who to go with, who to trust. But if there's one thing that you should be looking at now, is the level of broadband and connectivity that you've got on your farm. Because connectivity and broadband access is the main roadblock to adopt technology, and everybody will tell you that. Technology can be available, but to adopt it to its full extent, that is the roadblock. So most of you already have technology that you are not able to utilize as much as you would like to. So looking for every option to build your farm network and bulletproof that Wi-Fi connection, that signal that will help you to maintain that connectivity in between your implements is paramount. There are, I won't advise you, and there are plenty of options that are developed, but I'm sure that in the next 6, 12, 18 months, a lot of things are going to happen in that space without doing a play on word here. Next is the platform interfaces. So once you have that information collected, it's got to be made available to somewhere. So platform interfaces will give you the possibility to exchange and data transfer that to your supplier like us, for example. Because if we know where your Kuhn machine works, we can also be in a position to reduce machine downtime. We are probably in a position of doing predictive maintenance and keep the machine updated with the new software improvement or generating the data that will give a greater live interaction with the operator to improve the machine efficiency. Or I think this is definitely what you've got to be looking for. mykuhn.com is a portal that we created a couple of years ago for our Kuhn customers, users of machines, to register their fleet of equipment, to manage their fleet of equipment, where they can find a variety of informations related to their machines. It's also a portal that is evolving to exchange data, and the data that will then grow as we grow the broadband access and connectivity. So mykuhn is pretty cool, and it's definitely something that a lot of manufacturers are having or look of having. And I'm sure that here, for example, you have to go and collect your spare parts still at the counter, but you can order spare parts online. But can you imagine that a virtual assistant can generate that spare part order for you, that you get the spare part delivered to you just before the machine breaks down in the paddock? But that's I think the goal. But that goal will not be achieved without sharing information, sharing data. Here is an example of a telemetry collected for a feed mixer wagon on a dairy farm back to us. The geolocation of the machine and a variety of information that just give the customer more to make business decisions. So you understand the concept, and you've heard about that for some time now, and it's definitely working in a lot of occasions, and will be part of our lives to make those business decisions. But we still have a lot of work to do, but each day we are getting closer. And the success that we are going to have will not depend on the technology that you will choose. It will depend on the level of data and the will to share that business data and the trust that you have to build with all your suppliers. Trust is probably a discussion for another evening, but with dozens of suppliers of farm machinery, seeds company, fertilizer providers, associations like AFIA and others, you have to put that trust as a priority, because you have to be able to share data back and forth. So our world is changing. We know there are challenges, and we know them. They are constantly repeated to us. The population is growing, 9.7 billion in 2050, and we have to produce 50% more food, which is beautiful. This is great to be in that environment. But the challenges are there, because this is a lot of food for that. And we have only less resources to do it. Less resources, limited resources, and 90% of that growth would come from production yield increases. So definitely a lot on our plates. And I would like to conclude with an uplifting end, in a sense that I think that is extraordinary opportunities ahead of us in many form and shape. But here I've taken Frans Timmermans, who is the Executive Vice President of the European Commission. He was interviewed last May by our Kuhn CEO, T. Cryer, during the European Farm Machinery Association Summit. And the message that voiced Mr. Timmermans was very clear. He said, and that's on behalf of the Europeans, of course, he said that we need to stop intensification to produce more, that more must come from producing with less, and less fertilizer, and less water, less land. We need to stay within the planetary boundaries, and because we have limited resources. He said that this will not be achieved without the uptake of technology and the uptake of new technology towards that paddock to plate strategy that we hear about, that will make the food traceable. The technology as well that we focus on is mainly dedicated and focused for large farms, and that's completely obvious. But we should not forget also to produce and to create technology for smaller farms. And for that, the threshold to access high-tech must be lowered. And finally, and this is also his words, that food must be, when possible, produced where people live. And the last 2 years have also given us a lesson on this front. So as you know, Kuhn, as you know now, Kuhn has been manufacturing for almost 200 years, the most extensive product range offering. And we are now adding high technology to make these implements connected and able to collect data to enable the next growth generation or growth transformation, I must say. So with 12 factories across the world and this unique branding strategy that we have in place, that gives us the strength that we need to develop our machines towards that new phase of transformation. And to conclude, I think that in the next 10 years, I imagine, because we never know, but we will see a lot of consolidations. A lot of consolidations, smaller manufacturers or smaller farmers may find difficult and too expensive to transit to, because the stakes are high. Manufacturing machinery and farming have challenges that have unprecedented magnitude as the inclusion of technology progresses. So I hope that you see with those different slides and comments that Kuhn is very much up to the task, and we are definitely set up for that transformation to happen and to live with. And this is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for listening, and I am very open to all the questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruno. You've certainly given us quite a lot to think about, and I know I've taken quite a few notes. I don't know about other people. While others are working out their real or virtual hand, I've got a bit of a question for you. First of all, could I make a slightly flippant comment and say that we often say we struggle in agriculture to attract the next generation, and particularly to attract people without an agriculture background. But I've got to say, looking at your uni tool, I reckon we might sort of be up there and make a great new audience and suddenly be a sexy industry and even have movies made about that. So I think you're solving a problem for us there. My question, though, is as you're going forward and heading towards that piece of technology that has that multifunction in it, what is Kuhn finding as its biggest challenge to get there? Is it technology barriers? Is it regulatory? What do you see probably as the major blockage in the pathway to get you to that end point in the short-term future?
I think there are two very important roadblocks. The one that I mentioned earlier was the connectivity and the access, so that we can really make sure that our machines and machines all together are working in a safe environment and controlled at all times. But the second one is definitely the one you mentioned there, is regulatory. So that technology is actually advancing and improving much quicker, much faster than lawyers will put regulations down.
Thanks, Bruno. Andrew Walter, you have a question.
Bruno, I was wondering if you could make a comment on your thoughts as to the success or failure of CAN bus as an interface between farm machines.
I don't know how to answer that question, Andrew. I think that Isobus has been around for many years, and this is just, I think that the first one was actually in 1990. So it is tested. It is a beautiful standard that has allowed this to happen. The machine to communicate to the tractor. Now, as I tried to portray in that presentation, from the beginning, machinery has evolved from being a single tool to merge within one automated equipment. It's not yet the case, and it's going to take years before we get there. But this is how it happens. So the CAN bus is part of that transition and transformation of that equipment.
Does it have a future, or is it run its race?
It depends how the connections still need to be done. Whether the connection of the implement merging and melted into the same body of a tractor, you still have to connect that to the machine. So I would like to believe that the CAN bus and the Isobus technology has more future than none.
Thanks, Bruno. My only comment is they have a great working relationship when the horse and the jockey's out of the same stable, but if they're from different stables, good as useless.
You didn't strike me as a horseman, Andrew Walter, but I've learned something new about you tonight. Anyone else with a question? Or maybe a Melbourne Cup tip from Andrew, perhaps, if he wants to share it.
I actually was trying to ask Allan from Intergrain a question before, but you were ignoring my hand raising. Paula, I see Allan's picture is in the middle of my screen. Can I ask him a question?
You can if you're very succinct, because then I'm moving on to our place guests. But yes,
Allan,
last question, Andrew.
You showed us a remote machine that was doing scanning of your plots, and you made a comment that you were going to try and have the fibre and water-soluble carbohydrates of the individual plots come back to you. I think it was at the 4th stage of your breeding. Is that right, Allan?
That's where we're that's where the research is aimed at the moment. But if we get it to work, Andrew, we will obviously do it in stages 1 and 2. Bearing in mind, I'm going to need to talk to someone like Kuhn about how we actually get that $1 million worth of cameras more movable, and automated.
Well, I was interested in that you could get those quality parameters from looking at a crop that's growing. We as an industry have tremendous troubles getting laboratories to get it right with dead material, let alone getting it right with right material.
Yeah, look, on the fibre thing, Andrew, still a lot of work to do with the sugar. We're pretty confident we'll get there, but fibre is going to be a different story. But in breeding, even if we have an accuracy or a correlation of 30-40%, we can still make a lot of gain with that. Basically, every breeder hates to admit it, but breeding is a numbers game. The more numbers we put in, the more chance we've got of finding the right thing at the other end. It is a numbers game. We have to be playing in the right set of genetics and the right environments and all that other stuff. Don't get me wrong, but the more you put in, the better chance you've got of finding something that comes out the other end with all the ticks. Thanks.
Well, I wish you well and hope that the trailblazing you've been able to do in barley can be reflected in oats and oat and hay.
No dramas.
Thanks,
no challenges
Andrew,
too big.
and thanks, Allan. We're now going to move on, if that's okay, to the first of our AFIA members, our place presenters. I think we've got a few pictures through maybe, or some photographs. And so I welcome Richard Rose from WA to tell us how things are looking on the other side of the country.
Yeah, hello. You can hear me okay?
We certainly can. Thanks, Richard.
Bruno, have you stopped sharing your screen? Sorry.
Yeah, so as far as an update in WA goes, we're still getting some rain. I think we're only expecting probably maybe 5 to 8 mil we were really expecting, and I think we're just about at about 30 now. So that was a fair bit more than they forecast. So we're pretty happy with that. It's been a little bit drier in the last few weeks as opposed to July, when it basically didn't stop raining. I think we had 28 days of rain for the month in total. So it's been kind of busy. We bought another property earlier in the year for irrigating, which is about 45 minutes from our home farm. So we've got some barley over there. I've seeded some field peas, and we're just cutting that at the moment, and then gonna look at getting lucerne seeded on that. We already seeded some lucerne. Also actually seeded about 14 hectares of sunflowers as a bit of an experiment, see what happens. Fair bit different sort of country over there. It's sort of quite flat, loamy soil, with like a shallow water table, which is totally different to where our home farm is. So other than that, it's canolas, all the flowers have just started falling off the canola. That's looking pretty good. The heads are just starting to come out on the oats and the wheat. So I'd say we'll probably be cutting within the next few weeks on some varieties. So, yeah, it's all in all pretty good. Probably, if anything, some areas did get a little bit waterlogged. It did get a bit cold there for a while, which slowed things up, through July. But all around, a pretty good season.
Thanks, Richard. I don't want to jinx things, but we've certainly got some commentary going around at the moment that suggests it sort of might be the best year ever. Do you think that's going to be the case from your situation?
I wouldn't say it's the best year ever. Actually, last year, I think we're just where we are is probably on par with last year, funnily enough, even though mills of rain wise, we're well above last year, but last year was a warmer growing season and everything grew with much more vigor. I think probably the amount of water and the cooler temperatures we've had this year has subdued things to a certain extent. There was a frost, I think it was last week. We didn't really, I didn't notice too much. I did notice, I don't know, a little bit on the edges of the canola, but I know sort of further out in the wheat belt, it was a bit more prolific out there. To what extent that's knocked things around, I don't know, but yeah, there's like out around sort of Newdigate and that's pretty prone to frosts out that way. So if anywhere's going to get frosted, they will, and I think they were looking at a pretty decent season. I think the northern wheat belt, it has got a little bit dry, so that's probably just sort of taken the icing off the cake. They've had a phenomenal year, but they just could have just done with that little bit more rain just to finish things off, but all pretty good all the same. And yeah, I think the Great Southern is, if not for frost, as long as frost hasn't knocked things around too much, then I'd say the Great Southern is probably on track for a pretty decent year. I mean, and commodity prices wise, you could probably say best year ever in terms of yields plus commodity prices. I think 2018 was one of those years where we had a really good yield across the state pretty well, and prices everyone was pretty happy with prices then, but they we've got sort of canola above $900 a ton here, so that was a lot. It was a lot higher than it was in 2018. So yeah, we've gone well past 2018, and that was considered probably one of the best years profitability wise. So it could well be one of the best years we've ever had. I'd say there'd be plenty of farmers. I know there is plenty of farmers out around further out eastern wheat belt and that where they don't normally get a great season all that often, and they're saying there are guys there who have never seen it so good. So and they've been farming there for 40 odd years, So yeah, it's really a combination of that early rainfall with that cyclone Saroja that came through, and then it has kept on ever since, and just had that early start. And there's some amazing looking canola crops around the state, and particularly in places you wouldn't expect to see them, quite low rainfall areas. So yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else want to ask Richard about his farm operation? No, everyone's gone digitally hand shy, it looks like. Yeah. Thanks, Richard, for joining us. I appreciate that. And now to perhaps give a contrast, I'm going to welcome Stuart, who's based in Berrigan in New South Wales, to tell us how things are looking on this side of the country.
Righto, you got me? How's that? Nobody
All good.
can hear me?
Welcome,
All good?
Stuart.
Thank you. Yeah, so here at Berrigan, which is in southern New South Wales, which is in the Riverina, we're only 40k from the Murray River. We've had a fairly good year up to date. We've had, or probably a fairly dry, cool summer. It wasn't real hot, and then we had big rain in March, which set the season up. But then it did dry out, and when it got to sowing time, it was a bit deeper moisture, so a lot of the crops didn't get going until we had more rain in mid-May, and then things got cracking around here, and there's a bit of a patchy germination in the canola, but it's all catching up now. And we've also had good rains through June, July, with just enough, no runoff, but it was fairly wet. And then August coming a bit dry. We only had 18 mil in August, and we've had another 40 mil at the start of September. So it's, yeah, looking pretty good, but we're actually irrigating with off allocation water at the moment. So we've been going for about 10 days irrigating, which is pretty handy at the moment. So yeah, but in general, everyone's pretty happy with the season. So I think there's a bit of silage getting knocked down. We'll probably cut some next week, and yeah, we'll go through to into the hay job early October, mid-October, I suppose. Depends on the. It has been fairly cool. We haven't had a lot of days above 24 or 5. Been a couple of light frosts the last couple of mornings, so yeah, it's not like other years where you're getting up to 30 already, but it's okay. We're pretty happy with the job so far. But yeah, I think with the season and the prices, everyone should be pretty after last year's pretty good year too. So we've got headers going up into southern Queensland, which is better than last year even, so they're all pretty happy right up the east coast, which is going to be pretty good for Australia, I think, with the COVID and all the rest. Agriculture's a bit of a bright side, I think. So yeah, all good.
Thanks, Stuart. If AFIA had a magic wand and I could wave it and give you a wish, what would be the sort of one challenge that we could eliminate that might make your farming business better and more profitable in the coming 12 months to 2 years?
Probably lower fertiliser prices. I hear they're going to be around that $1,000 a tonne, which is not going to be a hard pill to swallow, I think. So cheaper fertiliser, and yeah, another good season next year would be really good on top of this one.
You said you've got people up at southern Queensland. I'm just wondering, from a COVID perspective, how you found challenges in terms of moving people around interstate.
We've already taken one header up there. We just got to get your COVID test, and you've got to have one jab to get into Queensland. You've got to have a negative test, and yeah, so far we've still got another couple of headers to go up there, and trucks and whatever. So we've got trucks already going into Queensland with other products at the moment, and South Australia. So they're all got to have their COVID test every 3 days, and they'll do a fair bit of grizzling about it, and all the rest of them just got to do it to keep moving. But I think yeah, the only way forward is get the noodles and get on with it, I think. I think we'll
but
be
at
right.
I guess at the moment you're not sensing that that's, well, people might not be happy with the situation, but it's not delaying the operation anyway, meaning the system seems to be working.
All systems seem to be working, yeah. I think it's all okay as long as you're doing all the necessary things to get in there, you're right, yeah. Yeah. But you got to do it in plenty of time, you can't be in a hurry. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else got questions for Stuart?
Oh, it's Pip here. I hope my internet's working a bit better. Hi, Stuart. We talk on and off during the year. Primarily, we were chatting the other day about lucerne being the only real fodder that's been shifting at the moment.
Yeah.
That's something you've seen, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The last 6 weeks, I suppose, there's been a bit of demand for lucerne. Yeah, I've had a couple of inquiries today from over Kuhn way, so and a bit up into Queensland even. So yeah, lucerne or good quality vets, if you've got some, it's in demand as well. So yeah, but as far as open hay and cereal hay, it's all pretty hard to shift. Unless you've got some hungry cattle. Yeah. Thanks, Pip. Thanks for getting me on here.
It's good to have you do it, and yeah, and I know you have good source of information, but obviously, yeah, you're seeing a little bit of difference, like from Victoria, South and New South Wales. So it's you can see the contrast between the two.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pip. Thanks, Stuart. I don't think we've got any more hands up. So thank you both, Stuart and Richard, for your time. We appreciate you making that time. And of course, Stuart, the bad news is when you've been on once and done a good performance, that means you could get a ticket back again in the future. So you've been warned.
The doors are wide open.
But thank you, we appreciate it. My job now, I think, unless anyone else has got any more questions, is just to wrap up the night, to thank everyone for their attendance, to remind you that we'll be back on 7 o'clock East Coast time, this time next week, next Thursday, to talk about automation and also to hear from New Holland and what's in their pipeline. And just also a reminder that the 5th and final forum is on the 30th of September, which also culminates with AFIA's annual general meeting for 2021. So we welcome everyone to join us for that as well. Also a reminder to everybody, I know busy times coming up, but while you're out in the paddock, we don't even need to take a camera these days. As Bruno's told us, we've got more integrated technology coming, but we've got that wonderful thing called a telephone with us that has a camera in it. So start snapping, because we'd like to see some photographs for AFIA's photo competition, which then becomes our 2022 calendar. And we've got a few fairly wide themes there of animals, family, innovation and adaptation using the AFIA acronym. So really, any photograph probably will fit, and we're looking forward to judging the winners. Thanks, Prue. Thanks again to our sponsors. Thank you, Bruno, for joining us tonight. And I know I'm certainly going to be thinking a bit about what you've said. I've already got a few more questions for you, which I'll put your way. But we appreciate everyone's participation. AFIA is grateful to its sponsors who allow us to do many things, including our events like this evening. So on that note, thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe over the coming week. I'm going to reinforce Stuart's comments. Please get your jab if you haven't. And we look forward to seeing everyone next Thursday night for Fodder Forum number 4. Thank you and good evening. Bye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.